prophecy is a story that somebody believes is going to happen at some point in the future. This story starts on October 4th, 2022. It was a night of psychic readings, and there were 12 of us there. The psychic was a lady named Anne Brady Cronin, and when it got to be my turn, Anne asked, "Are you planning on going on a trip to a really high mountain?" And I said, "Nope, I don't have any trips planned." And she said, "Oh, you're going to be going on a trip to a very high mountain, like to the Himalayas. You don't have a trip planned to the Himalayas?" And I said, "No, I don't have a trip planned to the Himalayas." Three days later, I was out on a run when this vision of a Pachamama came to me right in front of me in the middle of the sidewalk. And it was so clear. It was like if I kept running, I felt like I'd run into a tree. So I stopped, and this woman said that she wanted me to come to Peru, and she wanted me to bring her a warm, soft blanket. She said I needed to wash her feet and put lotion on her feet. Now, I understood this was an ancestral reference because my grandma lived to be 103, and that's what I did for her. So as soon as I went home, I started searching up trips to Peru. And there was a trip that was going to be leaving in 2 weeks. It was a trip to a really high mountain called Asangate. It was a 10-day retreat up at about 16,000 feet in the Andes. I went to the About Us page, and on that page, I saw a bio and a picture of the woman who had appeared in front of me on the sidewalk. Her name is Maria Apaza, and she is 98 years old. She is an altomisayoc, which is a person who communicates with the Apus, or the spirits of the mountains, and the Pachamama. The altomisayoc is like probably the highest person in the Incan Andean tradition. It's a priest, and she's kind of like the Andean version of like the Dalai Lama or the Pope. A couple days after I landed in Peru, the retreat started. Well, I asked the retreat leader right away. I said, "I can't wait to meet Maria Apaza. When do we get to meet her?" And he said, "Oh, you're not going to be meeting Maria Apaza. She's not working with the public." And I said, "What do you mean she's not working with the public?" He said, "No, she's 98 years old. She's really not practicing anymore. The family wants to keep her away from people, especially since COVID." And I said, "Well, she's the whole reason I'm here. I don't care what I need to do. I'll rent a taxi. I'll hire a horse. I'll walk through the jungle. I need to see a Maria Apaza." And he said, "It's not going to happen." So I was really disillusioned. I went back to the United States, and I started really questioning myself and my spiritual journey. I started thinking that maybe the voice that I'd attributed to inner guidance was really just the voice of my ego. Maybe I was just had this need to be special or feel special. So that's why I created some sort of vision or quest that I needed to go on. Maybe I was just crazy. And then I started to really feel badly because all that money that I'd spent on that trip, it had taken me 6 weeks painting houses to earn the money for the trip. And I had spent 90 hours just chipping the side of a 3-story clapboard house. And I thought about that money, and I could have used it to bring my daughter home for Christmas. My daughter lives overseas, and she hadn't been home for Christmas for 2 years. So I started to wonder if my whole spiritual journey was selfish. About 9 months later, I was going through a program called the Dream Arc. The Dream Arc is a codex of 192 animals. And as part of the Dream Arc, you're supposed to choose a guardian animal and then have this guardian ritual where you welcome in your guardian animal. Our ritual week was scheduled for the last weekend in October and the first few days in November. The year earlier, when I'd gone on that high altitude retreat in the Andes, one thing very unusual had happened at 16,000 feet. There was a night when I wasn't feeling well. I had a little bit of a headache, like high altitude headache, so I went to bed early. Everyone else was in the dining tent, but I skipped dinner. And when I was laying in my tent, I heard this sound, this kind of growling, snarling noise that I thought was dogs at the time. And then the snarling kind of turned into this roar. It sounded like a lion. And then it turned into something that sounded like it was from Jurassic Park. My blood froze. I was absolutely terrified, laying perfectly still in my tent. And then the noise, whatever it was, kind of shuffled off. It went away. Through the dream arc, I had the opportunity to talk with a wisdom keeper, Jaime Alvarez Acosta, from the Incan Andean tradition. He said that the noise that I'd heard was the voice of the Apus, the spirit of Asungate. I had this inner knowing that I needed to do my guardian ritual on Asungate. I wanted to spend the night of the full moon, alone on the mountain, and face the Apus to try to get to the root of whatever it was that had frightened me the year before. So here I am, feeling another calling to go to Peru. And this time it wasn't a floating Pachamama in front of me. It was just this inner knowing. And I was really having a really hard time explaining it to myself, much less anybody else. But I just knew that I needed to go. So I ended up doing more painting jobs. And this time, at least, I made enough money to bring my son with me. October 27th, the day before my ritual, my son and I left Cusco. We took a 3-hour bus ride up to the Andes. And we stayed in a little town called Pachanta. It's a little Quiros village, tiny, tiny village, right at the base of Asungate. And the next morning, I got up and headed up the mountain. While I was up on the mountain, I met this shaman. He had lived with the Shipibo tribe in the Peruvian jungle and had done over 1,000 ayahuasca ceremonies. He had been living up on Asungate for 3 years. And he introduced me to these other 2 shaman women, Peruvian gals named Melissa and Allison. And so here I am up on the mountain in this incredibly surreal setting, thinking that I went up there to face this fear, the Apus, and instead I ended up meeting these very spiritually powerful people who embodied Incan wisdom. I woke up in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went outside and I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to face whatever it was that came to my tent last year. And as I stepped out, I could see by the light of the moon, the lake shining in the distance and light kind of glimmering off the rocks, almost as if they had this light of their own emanating from them. And rather than feeling frightened, I felt this amazing sense of peace, just incredible peace. So the next day I went down the mountain and I was in Cusco for almost 2 weeks. And when the shamans had come down off the mountain, both the 2 women that I'd met and the man from the jungle, they were in Cusco, and they invited me to a ceremony that was going to be taking place on 11/11. It was a ceremony for peace. And it was going to be about an hour away, so I wasn't sure whether or not I really wanted to go. Then they sent the brochure for this sacred kind of family ceremony. And right there in the middle of the brochure is a picture of Maria Apaza, the woman who I'd been trying to see a year earlier. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm coming. Well, I went to set my alarm that night for my phone, and I set it, and I could see that there was actually an alarm already set for 11:11, but it was 11:11 p.m. I'd set that alarm a year and a half earlier on May 15th, 2022. It was the anniversary of my grandma's death, and 11:11 p.m. on that date was a full moon eclipse. I'd spent the night at my grandma's grave on May 15th, and my alarm was still set on that for that 11:11 eclipse. So the fact that I was going to an event with Maria Apaza on 11/11 at 11:11 a.m. felt incredibly symbolic. There was this ancestral connection. At the ceremony itself, it was amazingly beautiful. It was Maria and her sons, their wives, and their children, and a few other people, but it was pretty much just a very small family ceremony, incredibly sacred, with all kinds of beautiful items laid out as an offering to the Pachamama. Maria said that they had received a message from the Apus, from Asungate, that they were supposed to be creating an online school. Maria wanted to share her vision, the wisdom of the Keros people, with the world. And they asked if I could help. Now, I was completely blown away. And then I remembered the vision of washing her feet. And I asked if I could have the honor of washing her feet. And I felt really uncomfortable. I'll admit I felt really uncomfortable. But as I sat there washing this woman's feet, everyone in the room got quiet. It had this air of sacredness to it. And she said, this is actually a prophecy of the joining of the eagle and the condor. The eagle representing North America and the condor representing South America. And this is a prophecy that's playing out in multiple ways throughout Peru and throughout North America. And I felt incredibly privileged to be caught up in this beautiful joining of the two nations. We have the opportunity to restore this lost connection to the earth. I think a lot of people are struggling with feelings of anxiety and isolation. They feel lost and alone and confused. And it's not surprising, because when you think about it, we've lost the connection with the earth. We've lost the connection with our mother. We are children who are wandering through this life without a mother. And what's amazing is that this disconnection is so complete that we forget that we even had a mother. And I think that's what the Keros people can teach us. They can teach us how to restore that connection with nature, how to restore what's been lost. You look at the difference in the way that we approach our food. You know, the food that enters our body, food is who we are. And yet you look at how we treat food. In the Keros tradition, that seed would have been planted with prayer. The people would be praying over that plant as it grew. They would pray over the harvest. They would pray over the food as it was prepared. They would pray over the food before it entered their body. There's a difference in the way that they approach food. It's a beautiful thing that we can restore that connection to some degree through these relationships with the Keros people. This is what they have to teach us.
Falta nuestro rey guerrero.